Hey, all you experts out there, this is the Monetize Your Expertise podcast, where we show you how to use your skills to pay the bills. Have you ever wanted to create a business that positions you as the industry leader and go-to expert? Join me every week to hear from amazing leaders and entrepreneurs who have successfully refined their skills in order to become experts and create extremely profitable knowledge businesses. To find all of the links and tools mentioned in this episode, just go to myepodcast.com. I'm your host, Grant Weherley, the online course guy, helping you every week to monetize your expertise. Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode. Today I'm here with Hugh Bayati, a high-performance coach and speaker. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be speaking on your podcast. I hear a lot of good things about it.
Thanks. You flatter me. So tell me a little bit about what you do.
Well, I'm a high-performance coach and speaker. I'm also a founder of a website named successenergy.com. And what I do is basically I coach people to their peak performance in any area they deem valuable, whether that be in their career or their business, or in their relationships, or in their health and fitness.
What about sexual stamina?
Yeah, if that's what you want to do, I think I can teach you about that. I don't know if the girls would say the same thing, but
might be an awkward practical exercise at the end. But
you'd be surprised what people ask for, man. You'd be really surprised.
What's the weirdest thing that you've had somebody ask you to help them with?
Well, that is exactly what you talked about, sexual stamina, but it was a woman.
Really?
She didn't specifically ask me to,
Oh man, I was kidding.
There you are, absolutely right. That's why when he said it, I'm like, are you serious? How did you know?
I'm psychic, yeah.
She didn't, ask me, it wasn't like physical, but it was more of a psychological thing, because everything is blocked unconsciously, so she wanted to know the strategies of how she can be unblocked, which was interesting.
Oh, yeah. I think I know who you're talking about. That's weird. Anyways, moving on. This is the most awkward way to start a podcast ever, but okay.
I love it.
It's very genuine. So I think you have an interesting story, given your background that you originally started out with in your career and where you ended up. So do you mind talking a little bit about that?
About the background?
Yeah. So like starting out, in finance and how you ended up in the personal development sort of coaching world.
Sure. I'll start it when I was like a kid. So I was 8 years old, right? And I woke up in the middle of the night. And you know when you're a kid and you wake up and it's like kind of exciting, you kind of feel naughty and like you're sneaking out of your bed. Anyway, I sneaked out, I went to the living room, and we used to have those like really, thick box TVs. And I remember turning it on and infomercials came on. And I thought they were actually pretty cool. And
Did you see Tony Robbins when you were 8?
You kind of wrecked the story, man.
I'm sorry.
No, but that's exactly it. Yeah. I saw like the ad, the Bowflex ad machine, and then the pot, they were selling the pots, and then Tony Robbins comes on, and I kind of just, I don't know, something happened. I had this kind of feeling when I watched it. But what's funny is even as a kid, I was skeptical. I was like, what's this guy trying to sell us success and motivation? Like, this is some sort of BS. But I woke up 4 more nights in a row just to watch it again. And anyway, I totally forgot about him. But then years later, I used his strategies to go from a retail sales assistant to a national sales manager within less than a year. And so I was sales manager. Then I went to work for an investment company in Auckland, New Zealand. And then I just decided like this just was not fulfilling me. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but you kind of just know it. Like it didn't feel right. Like I was helping people, and it was like I was customer service and kind of motivating people in some way to buy a great product, but it just didn't feel right, and I wanted to do it my way, my style. And so I went on to study a couple of sciences and study a few things, and I became a high performance coach and speaker.
Nice. So how did you end up in the sort of financial industry in the first place? Like what led you to choose that?
To be frank with you, money. Basically, I was doing really well as a young national sales manager in New Zealand. We grew the company to Australia. So my confidence was peaking, at that age, and it was just kind of like, well, why not see other avenues where I can earn more money? That's what you think about in your 20s, and as well you should. So I actually it's funny because I went out to dinner with a friend, and then I met the manager of this company, and we just clicked. And then he told me he's never hired anyone in his 20s, the youngest person's in their 30s, and I kind of took that as a challenge. And then I met the director and general manager, and then I got the position. To be honest, it was mainly money. That was my motivation.
Well, it's a very honest answer. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I suspect it was not a financially motivated decision to move out of that and into the sort of personal development world. So what motivated that decision?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Earning a good amount of money in your 20s and then leaving that. What motivated was mainly like me not feeling fulfilled. It just did not feel right to stay with this company. And like as well, I was helping people and I made good friends with some clients and just the team. I didn't mind working a 9-to-5 job. I was good with all the managers. That wasn't my issue. It's not like the cliche, I hated my job. I didn't really hate my job. It was somewhat fun, but there was still part of me that was just like, I could do something bigger. I could do something better. And why not start now? As well as a few things that happened. I went to a lot of seminars, including Tony Robbins, and I did the firewalk, and that kind of changed my mentality as to what I really should be doing and what I really should be going after.
Nice. I can see you picked up the snapping thing too.
Yeah, the snapping, the hand movements.
Yeah. Now you're just like poking me in the shoulder or something. That's really awesome. And I think it probably must have been a difficult decision for you to do that, right? Because I think in a lot of ways we're pushed to sort of be, financially motivated and to forego that. I'm sure you probably faced a lot of backlash from maybe your friends, family, your coworkers.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. I mean, look, my friends and family, they did it out of love. They all support me now. They did support me from the beginning. They did think I was kind of crazy for it, which is fair enough. You give up a 6-figure job in your 20s to basically zero, earning nothing, and chasing your quote-unquote passion, which sounds like a lot of BS in society when you say I'm going to chase my passion. It just kind of sounds like bullshit, to be honest. You don't mind swearing in this podcast?
I don't know, go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to just go for it.
Although probably avoid the C words that I know that I know New Zealand, the Kiwis are fond of, but aside from that, it's probably good.
You're a good
exactly.
Kiwis and Aussies.
Sweet as.
You didn't do the accent right, but
sorry.
Get the accent right. Basically, it was kind of a hard transition, giving up the financial motive. But again, like early when I went to become a national sales manager and for that company as well as in that investment company, I was financially motivated. But for the first time, I kind of felt like I wasn't. Yes, I knew this job would make me money, this position, going after my passion. But I think more importantly was doing something that I actually enjoyed 24/7.
So you said you were financially motivated before, but then when you made this transition, you were no longer financially motivated. So then what motivated you?
Okay, obviously there's still some level of financial motivation, but it's not the main one.
Yeah.
And the main thing that motivated me was the fact that at any moment when I'm working, I'm actually enjoying it. So when I'm coaching someone, when I have a coaching client, I don't see it as a coaching client. I see it as I'm going to go have fun. That's how I see it in my mind. Obviously, my aim is to help the person get the result that they want and more. But mainly, it's just I'm going to go have fun. Because it is fun for me. This is my passion. It's actually fun. It's fun for me to talk to someone one-on-one. That's my passion, is helping someone get the result they want. As well as speaking. When I go out and speak and I do them once a week live in Chiang Mai and I stream them online, it's fun for me. It's like art. It's like I'm going to go speak to people about what I love and get them results. Because the people that show up want to be there. So it's an event. It's fun. And it gives me so much energy. That's probably the other thing. I get energy when I do it, even if I haven't eaten or drank anything that day. It's just like I get so much energy from it. So when I'm actually doing the quote-unquote job, it's not a job, it's fun. Yeah.
So I imagine by contrast, maybe you found your previous career path maybe somewhat draining by comparison, or at least because I guess if you're doing the wrong kinds of things, naturally you'll end up finding it be a draining experience. Whereas if you're doing the right kinds of things, it'll be a very energizing experience, right?
That's exactly it. I mean, obviously with everything, guys, there's challenges in everything. You can't BS yourself. There's challenges in everything, including chasing your passion. Actually, probably there's more challenges than that, because you're mixing fun and passion with work. But like you said, it was definitely more draining. Like when I'd go to work, it was, I was motivated in my other jobs, but when you have challenges, it was just more draining than when you have challenges in your passion. Because in your passion, at least you're having fun doing it. Because if it's truly your passion, then you are having fun doing it, even when you do have challenges. So that's the difference.
Interesting. So I imagine you encourage people to pursue their passion, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look, calculate it. Don't just run off and, I'm not advocating quit your job today and go for your passion. That's not what I'm saying. For some of you, your passion may be in a job. Everyone is different. You got to figure that out for yourself. You got to really sit down and figure that out. And that's actually one of my next seminars, not to plug it, but that's just one of my next seminars. It's not this week, but it's in 2 weeks' time. It's about how to really find your passion, it doesn't necessarily have to be starting a business. I think that's really been advertised a lot. It might be that way. That might be one of the ways, but really trying to understand what your passion is and how you can go about doing it.
But I think another thing that's kind of advertised a lot is to quote unquote find your passion. But I think maybe that's one of those phrases that's used so much that when people hear it, they're like, yeah. What does that really mean? Exactly. So can you define what that really means to you, to find your passion? Like, what does that actually mean?
Good question. Okay, so first thing I would start is think about the conversations you're having on a daily basis, right? What conversations are you engaged in? And I would go from there and see, where do you light up? You know, where do you light up? Where is it the times when you talk and you can't stop talking and your eyes light up and you're literally passionate and you're so energetic? That's where I would start. That's kind of the starting point of finding your passion, is the times when you light up. Even when your friends talk to you, they're like, man, what happened to you? Like, you're different. And that's because that's what I find happened to me. Every time I talk about psychology and high performance, I wouldn't stop talking. And it was like, my friends would be like, whoa, relax. And I'd be like, well, why relax? I love talking about this. So it was almost like they weren't doing it, they were being friendly with me, but they were just kind of like, relax. But I realized me not being relaxed was because I was getting that high energy, because that was my passion. So I would start from there. What is it that makes you light up when you talk about it?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting point. I've heard that response a lot before as well. As people are like, whoa, calm down. Yeah. like you're like freaking out or something. We're like, what? No, I'm just talking energetically.
Exactly.
And I actually, you brought up Tony Robbins before. I imagine he's probably been told that like every second of every day or something, just because he's like crazy energetic. But
he's a crazy mofo, that guy. I mean, I could see why some people find him really weird, because he obviously loves it. That's why he can't stop talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. So you set out to have the intention to become an expert in the field of high performance and truly help people in that area. So I imagine at some point, right, like you knew very little to nothing about that. Maybe you'd read a couple books. I guess you'd seen the infomercials. So can you tell me a little bit more about that transition of how you developed yourself into an expert who can have high-end clients?
Good. Okay, so what you got to do, well, what I did first is, like you said, I did read a lot of books on it and continue to read. I did go, first of all, you got to respect the people that have done it in the past. So I went to the gurus of the past, the real gurus. So I read, and I'm still reading all the gurus in this high performance, as well as psychology, as well as somewhat a bit of meditation as well. Anything to do with high performance. Even if it's something controversial that I may question myself, that I don't believe in, I still read it. And then I went on to actually study under the Empowerment Partnership, which is under Dr. Matthew James. And I learned a lot more about high performance and how to get, tap into your unconscious and, get the kind of what we call the real you out of you, the high performing you. Because there's different moments in your life where you've been a high performer and there's moments where you haven't. And so I really wanted to learn about that. So I started simply through books, and then I dug deep into the unconscious mind. So that's how I kind of transitioned. I started digging more deep into certain topics, and specifically the unconscious mind, because that's where it all begins and ends.
So what was the point where you started to have the confidence to like work with other people to share your knowledge and expertise? Because I think maybe there isn't a switch. Maybe there's no turning point. Maybe it's just a gray area. But there's the transition from like, I have an interest in this, to I've read a couple books on this, to like I've read a lot of books on this, to I've paid for high-end training for this. Was there a specific point where you started to feel confident about working with other people?
Yeah, there is. And I just want to bring the analogy of like going to the gym. It's kind of like, when you first go work out, you do your exercises, right? And you feel the pain, but then the next day you wake up, you don't see that much results. And then maybe after a week or 2 or 3 weeks, and after maybe 7 weeks, you'll really start to see the results in your body and you feel much more confident. I guess it was really after, it is a gray area. It's not really a switch. It's more of a build up. Again, just like a muscle gets built up. It's not like overnight you get a muscle. It's a step-by-step process. And I guess it was just more knowledge, just reading more about it, and then engaging in those conversations with people, with experts, as well as with people that knew nothing about it. And the more conversations I engaged in, the more I was thinking, oh my God, where did these words come from that I'm talking about? And that gave me more confidence, because I realized that this stuff was really sinking in. So it's time, and only you'll really know it, because you'll just start noticing it in your words. So I can't really give you a specific time, but advice I can give is just keep reading and being involved in the industry that you want to get involved in. Keep reading, keep meeting people in that industry. and talking about it.
Yeah, because what comes to mind is two things for me, which is that, for example, say you start working out and you're like, I want to become strong and like very strong, right? And then like at what point are you strong? And there's no point where you're like the maximum level of strength, or you can always learn more, exercise more, do better, right? Essentially. And so it's just interesting that I guess we tend to view things. This is the other point I wanted to bring up, which is I really like the way this was put. It was imposter syndrome, right? Like, so people who want to work with other people to become an expert, you have to learn a lot of what other people have done, and then you start working with people, and then you're kind of just like repeating what you've learned, right? And then you're like, wow, that's like inauthentic. I feel like an imposter, or like, who am I to be an expert? And I think a lot of people experience this strong level of self-doubt, and there is no clear black and white for like when you're a noob and when you're an expert. And so I just think this topic of conversation is very interesting. It's like, so where does the confidence to be an expert actually come from?
That's a really good question. I want to touch on something you just said in the beginning of what you talked about, and then move on to that is, the concept of obviously modeling someone, which we always hear about. But going on to what you're saying, if you think about it, guys, anything in the world right now, although we have new technologies that we've never seen before, everything has already been created already before, and people have talked about it in the 16th century, in the 17th century. Obviously, there is new ideas out there, but at the basis of everything, the root of everything, the topics have already been spoken about. There's been experts in every century about specific topics, the root topics of life. So all that's happening is we're just repeating it. We're in the 21st century now, and there's new experts, there's new people to repeat the same conversations. So why don't you be that person? And how do you become that person? Learn about the people that have done it in the past. And the common pattern that you find with these people is that they work their ass off. They gain so much knowledge on this topic, and they work their ass off, and as well they put themselves out there. They put themselves out there as much as possible, which is, what we call marketing and sales in the 21st century in terms of, swapping money for your expertise. You got to put yourself out there as well. So I think it's those key aspects, is gaining the knowledge and actually then putting yourself out there, because there's a lot of intelligent people. What you're talking about, there's a lot of people out there that have the knowledge, but they haven't developed that confidence. And I think that's really a kind of a key ingredient. The final, you add pepper and salt to your meal. If you want to add pepper and salt, whatever you want to add, it's the confidence, and that's really important. That's in some ways the flavor that gets you out there. So when people kind of taste the food, they taste the flavor and they say, wow, this tastes really good. That's you putting yourself out there. That's confidence.
I think even more than that, it's the heat, which actually cooks your food, because it doesn't matter how much food you have. If you can't cook it without any heat, it's not really a very good meal, unless it's a salad. But
true. Yeah.
Anyways, this analogy's run its course. So yeah, actually, and it comes to mind too, is that, so I also read a lot. So 2 examples, one in the personal development world and one in the more startup business world, right? Tony Robbins, like I've read his stuff, I've listened to some of his stuff, and I've also read other books from other people that he clearly drew inspiration from. So right, like if you hear what Tony Robbins talks about, and then you read like any book on NLP, you can kind of see the overlap and be like, oh wow, like so maybe he doesn't call it that, maybe he tweaks it, maybe he incorporates his own stories. But at the end of the day, what he does is like he's synthesized a whole bunch of things. Maybe he's added on his own special tweaks to it. But then the real service he's doing is packaging it up and getting it out to the world. It's not necessarily that he's invented anything new. I mean, I suppose he has, but it's more about the service of actually getting it out there and taking something that's out there in the world and actually putting it to use to help to change people's lives. But then also, for example, Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Workweek, right? One of his things is the whole 80-20 principle, right? But that's like hundreds of years old, and he actually even references the books that came way before him that first talked about that in the back of, the 4-Hour Workweek. But it's picked up and sort of like attributed to him, and he's more of just the advocate for it. It's not something he invented by any means. He just learned about it and then became an advocate for it and provided the service of helping people apply that in their lives.
Absolutely, I agree. And that's interesting you say that, is the fact that if you think about it, all these guys you talked about that have recycled information, they're just literally being themselves. So what they've done is they've written a book, they've done a program, they've done whatever, and they're just being themselves, but repeating that information. Yeah, adding their little twist to it, maybe 10, 15%, they added their own ideas, but it's kind of in their own words, in their own style. And I think that's really important to note that and this goes back to what you're talking about, is working in your passion and putting out there, is that confidence to just be yourself. Yes, obviously you want to grow and read, but being yourself is really important, because that's how you're going to have fun in it, because you're just being you. You're just being you and talking about what you love.
You've mentioned reading a couple times, so let's talk about some success habits. What are some things that you do on a regular basis, whether it's like a morning ritual or just something you do regularly that you think contributes towards your efficacy and your success?
Definitely reading my goals at least once a day.
You know, I just did an interview yesterday. That was the very first thing he said as well. Okay, reading his goals every morning.
Promise I didn't hear it.
No, I know, it's good.
No, well, if you just read about successful people, they just always say, write your goals or read your goals regularly. And I don't want to just say it, just think about it. Why would you do that? Well, it's because so that you know your direction. Simple as that. So it's like you know your direction. I think that's really important because again, you wake up every day, you have 24 hours or have 18 hours if you sleep 6. You have 18 hours to do something to reach your goal. So you should read your goal so you know which direction you're going.
Can I use some of those 18 hours to sleep a little bit more than 6 hours?
Okay, then 20 hours. Yeah, it is the morning ritual. I do like to get up and definitely as soon as I get up is move my body so I get the blood flowing to get out of that sleeping state. I definitely do drink coffee as well, but I do want to move my body naturally as well in terms of getting the blood flowing and the dopamine and serotonin as well to naturally come out. And the second thing is that's when I read the goals and write my to-do list, the tasks. And the third thing that I do is read something to gain knowledge. It doesn't have to necessarily be in my field. It could just be history. It could be geography. Just read something so you get your brain stimulated. And that's really important to do in the morning, in my opinion, because your day just started. You want to get your mind moving. You want to start the day with your mind already working so that when you go on to do your tasks, you're already in that moving state.
Yeah, I really like that. And I actually, some of the things I do, I like to start and end the day with reading if I can, because on the one hand, it makes me very like sort of happy and optimistic and like excited to be learning new things. Like, oh, cool, I can use this in my business or my personal life or whatever. And it does get your mind moving in the mornings. But then even in the evenings as well, what I find is it makes me very calm and reflective, and the act of reading is so much different than working on a laptop. And so I calm down and start to like reflect. And actually I know that a lot of people recommend not reading nonfiction self-improvement or business books before sleep, but I find certain kinds of nonfiction books work really well. Like if you're reading a book about happiness, for example, I find that like very zen, and then it's kind of in my head as I'm falling to sleep, and it sort of starts and ends my day really, really effectively.
Exactly. And just to add to that also, guys, if you're trying to like grow yourself and go after your passion or whatever you're trying to do, when you read books, it's almost like I see it as in terms of you're making friends with the author. So you're having a conversation with the author. I know it kind of sounds weird and fluffy, but just think about it. This is the author actually speaking in their point of view. It's almost like you're having a conversation with them. So if you want to grow yourself, you want to kind of get out of your comfort zone and expand, that's one way of, in some ways, like making new friends. You read books for people that are successful in any area. It doesn't have to be finance, it could be science, it could be whatever it is. You're reading about them, and it's almost like you're having a different kind of conversation, especially if they've passed away and they're from past centuries. It's almost like you're talking to someone from the 16th century. I know it sounds different, but think about it from that point of view and you'll kind of approach reading in a different way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like you always hear the quote of you're the average of the 5 people you're around most, or whatever. I just butchered it, but it's something along those lines. And so a big argument against that is, well, what if you don't have really amazing people around you to associate with? Or maybe you have 3 out of 5. Well, you can easily fill the gaps or even create those 5 people based on the authors that you read most frequently. You know, it's just a great way to associate with people who are extremely successful, even if, for example, Tim Ferriss or Tony Robbins, if those are the people you want to associate with, well, they're probably really hard to get in touch with. So if you read their books, it's kind of a way of having that same effect without actually having access to that person. So I think that's fantastic.
True. That's absolutely right. It's very important to put yourself in front of these people. Even if you don't have access to them, you just put yourself in front of their books. That's the fastest way.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell me about a time where you faced a really big challenge or obstacle in your life and how you overcame that and any lessons learned you had? Because I always think this is an interesting conversation to have, because everybody's gone through difficult times in their lives. And I think those are the times where you learn the most interesting lessons. So I'm interested to hear an example of that in your own life.
Okay. So there was actually quite a lot. Before getting into my passion, actually, it was my first serious job interview. It was when I was going from a retail sales assistant to a national sales manager. And I remember I went to the interview and I got like butchered. Like, no. Seriously, like literally they were looking me in the eyes and saying, you're all shit, you're not the right, like literally the guy was that blunt, but me and him ended up becoming friends, obviously. He was literally like, you're all shit, you're saying this in an interview, tell us the real you. And I was like, and I felt like a real failure in that moment. And even after leaving the meeting, I felt like a failure because I was, following up the interview and trying to get the job. But the main part of it is I did end up getting the job, but then after my 3-month trial, they wanted to fire me. But thankfully, one of the managers, in some ways, he believed in my ability and he kept me there. And yeah, obviously it all went great because I ended up becoming, national sales manager, and we expanded the company to Australia. But
which is super ironic, right? You're about to get fired and then you actually become really effective.
It was crazy but the thing that I learned in those days was, honestly, I needed that. I needed for the director to tell me you're all shit. I needed him to confront me. Sometimes, I think like in the personal development world or in general, or now in the 21st century, have a lot of like passive aggressive, and it's kind of like, oh, it's okay. No, if you're weak, you're weak. Just confront it. Tell yourself you're weak, but do something about it. And that's what he did to me. He confronted my weakness. And at the time, I was sad. I was like, what? And I went into victim mode. But when I look back, I'm like, holy crap. Like, I needed someone to confront me on my weakness. And once I did make the changes. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely. But the main lesson I learned was sometimes you do have to confront your weaknesses. Don't cry about it. Just confront it and do something to change it. There's plenty of information out there for you to become better. Because I guarantee you, most of the challenges you're going through, most of the failures you're going through, someone has experienced it. The question is, are you focusing on finding a solution or not? That's really the lesson I took from it, was confronting my weakness and turning it around and making it a strength.
That's awesome. And I think what you're touching on there is the growth mindset. And book recommendation, I think it's called Mindset: one of those subtitles that you can never remember, by Carol Dweck, I think. Fantastic book. And I think, it's a really important thing and very insightful, because you felt like a failure, and that's a really strong, intense feeling, and how you react to that can completely determine the course of your career, the course of the rest of your life, right? If you're told that you're a failure or you feel like a failure, it's very easy to respond by giving up or maybe being like, oh man, maybe I'm just bad at this. Maybe I should just pursue a different type of career, right? Or you can turn that around and be like, man, this is a challenge. This is a skill set that I need to work harder to develop. And take that as inspiration to actually become a lot better. And that simple decision that you make in that moment can change the course of everything.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And by the way, I want to thank Sam and Eddie because they were the ones that confronted me.
Thanks, Sam and Eddie.
Sam and Eddie. It kind of sounds like a cartoon, doesn't it? Sam and Eddie. No, trust me. Yeah.
The Sam and Eddie show.
It was Sammy confronting me, and he was a very alpha male, A-type kind of man that just does not take no bullshit. And I think it's really important. That was really important for me. This other thing is at the same time, it was funny because in the back end, a lot of people around me thought that, job that I was going for was a BS kind of job. Like, they're like, what kind of company are you working for? Like, it's funny because, so it was almost like failures on multiple front that I felt, because people were saying, why are you trying to get that job? It's bullshit anyway. But I knew that on the back end that it was actually really good because of the director himself. He was the type, again, he would push you. He would push you to the brink and get you completely out of your comfort zone. And I needed that at that point. So I would highly recommend, I guess the lesson also on that is I'd highly recommend that you find someone that is going to confront your weaknesses and basically help you to, because he also helped me to actually turn that around.
Yeah, I think that's key. It's not just like, oh, you suck at this. It's but like, okay, you're not so good at this, here's how you can fix it. Yeah, I think that's really important.
Man, I'm like reminiscing now because I remember all the obstacles and like training under him and like how much shit I got. Because I can't really explain to you how much shit I got, but I got a lot of shit. Like, I did a lot of mistakes. But now that I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, wow, it actually was. Now that I look back, it was really a learning lesson. And it's not as bad as you think it is. Like, at the time, I thought this was the worst thing on earth. Now that I look back, it's like I'm laughing because I'm like, wow.
Yeah, not only laughing, but finding a lot of value in it. And so,
absolutely.
Yeah, I just like honing in on those moments, right? Because in those moments, it's so hard to remember that, like, it feels terrible. You feel like a failure. You feel like you're doing a terrible job. You feel like you're going to get fired. The world's going to end, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it turns it into a really good experience, right? I'm fascinated by moments like that because we have this tendency to, like, when things are bad, to forget that that's going to end, or like to view it as like such a fatalistic perspective. Whereas it could end up quickly becoming really amazing very shortly thereafter. And so I just kind of like talking about perspectives like that. It's really, really interesting.
Absolutely. I just want to add to that as well.
Sure.
You know, when people say, like, you hear it all the time, well, what did you learn from it? That's the thing you always got to do. Ask yourself, what did I learn from it? But think about this. Really just focus on what did you learn, and if you can't find anything, just don't make something up. Find something to learn from it, because there is a lesson for you to learn in every scenario. Find something, just focus, ask yourself, because I guarantee you, if you're not asking, you're focusing on something else. You're just focusing on the failure. The question you're probably asking is, well, why did I fail? Why does he think I'm bad? Screw him, I'm going to prove one day that I am the man. No, forget that. Ask yourself, what is the lesson? And ask yourself that 3 times in a row. When you keep asking yourself that question, you will find some answers and some clarity.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that also makes me think of a couple things. One of the things I also do, you mentioned reviewing your goals every day. I also review beliefs I try and set for myself every day.
Cool.
So, for example, I realized I had adopted a sort of societal belief of what success and what failure means. And so I decided to set the new belief that failure, to me, I have the belief that failure means failing to learn from a situation. It's not making a mistake. It's never making a mistake. It's not doing something out of fear or failing to learn from a mistake. And that's the only way I can possibly fail. And that's my literal definition of failure that I try to internalize now. And also that makes me think of, there's a really good, interesting framework to view failure. It's called, I don't remember what the name of it is, but it talks about type 1, type 2, and type 3 failures. So if you guys are interested in perspectives about failure and how to view failure very productively, I encourage you guys to look that up, because it's really, really interesting. It sort of turns our instinctive way of viewing mistakes on its head, and it's really, really valuable.
True. I like that. Changing your mindset about what failure really is.
Yeah, failure, success, motivation. Actually, that makes me think of another question that I'm curious. So when you wake up in the morning, you seem like a pretty excitable guy and you love what you do, but if you had to answer like in a concise sentence maybe, what motivates you when you wake up in the morning?
Okay, I know it might sound a little bit fluffy and cheesy, but it's the concept of time.
Oh, okay, that's not fluffy at all. I thought you were gonna say like you're a Virgo and
no.
Jupiter and the moon are in alignment or something.
Do you think I'm actually a Virgo?
No, I'm a Virgo. I don't know very many astrology signs.
I was gonna say I don't want to be that.
Oh, burn! Astrology burn.
The Mars aligned today with Earth. Did you know that?
So that sounds made up. Okay, anyways, go ahead.
No, it's the concept of time and like actually just being grateful that you're alive, because the only thing you're promised when you're born is that your time will be over one day. And I know that sounds kind of like straight up and straightforward, but that could either be sad or empowering to you, and that's what really empowers me. I'm like, holy crap, I'm alive today. Let's go out and get this. That's really what the main thing is. And just realizing that you have a body, you actually have a nervous system, you have a mind, you have everything working. Like if you're alive and healthy, you've got a whole system working for you. So what do you really have to complain about? So just go get it. It's sometimes it's literally that simple. Don't complicate it for yourself. Why complicate it? That's how I feel. It's really that simple. You're alive, just go get it. You're healthy. Even if you've broke your leg, just sit down on a laptop and go get it. I know it's simple, but that's really it.
Yeah, I really like that. And actually one of the things that motivates me is very, very similar, which is the perspective that, time is finite and my lifespan is finite, and I want to, live it up, like in terms of what I accomplish, in terms of who I end up being. And I think about all the stories that of people you inevitably run into that maybe they're 40 years old and they talk about how they essentially wasted the last 15 years of their life doing something that they really hated, or just make drastic mistakes that essentially it's like losing a large percentage of their life to something that makes them really unhappy. And I find that very motivating, and I try and reflect on that a lot. Imagining being on my deathbed and regretting the vast majority of my life, and it kind of scares me. And so it's similar to actually how a common Buddhist practice is to reflect on death and like meditate on like dead bodies and stuff, and like visualizing that as a form of motivation. And I think it's very true. It's not always the most pleasant thing to do those kinds of exercises, but it's really motivating and prevents you from just kind of not thinking about it. Because I think that's a common reaction, is to just be like, oh, I've got all the time in the world. And then you end up being 40 and being like, wow, the last 15, 20, 30 years, whatever, has been a total waste of time.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to add to what you're saying. That's actually a good point. With the previous question you asked was, what was the point that you decided to go after your passion? That was actually what you said there, is when I worked for this investment company, I was the youngest guy in the team, so I had to, because the reason being was because all the clients were older. They were all in their 50s, late 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s. And so I'd go out and see a lot of clients or speak to them on the phone, and every single one of them had at least one regret. And they'd say, well, when this happened in this age and that happened, or if I didn't do that, I would have been that, or if I didn't, it was excuses. And again, I'm not here to say, they have families, they have kids. I'm not here to tell them, go chase your passion, but that was kind of one of the motivations was,
unless their passion is fashion.
Unless their passion is fashion. Hey, all the older guys like Tommy Hilfiger and stuff, they're really old. So yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. That's a good point. They are, that was one of the driving forces. I looked at them and I said, oh my God, if I stay on this path, I'm gonna become one of these guys. And that's what really motivated me to go after the passion, which goes back to what motivates you in the morning. Is sometimes I do remember, when I was visiting clients, they would say this. They would tell me they would have regrets. And so that kind of does motivate me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of gets at the point of the anti-mentor or the anti-example of things. So people always talk about modeling successful people, right? And that's great, that's effective. I think it's a fantastic thing, but something people don't talk about as much, but which is also oftentimes is equally effective, is to have it's an anti-model people that you don't want to end up like. Yeah. So if there's a particular person that you look at their life and you imagine being them, and something about their life, if you imagine being them, it just feels really bad to you, it just doesn't resonate with you. Mm-hmm. Well, then you can look at the choices they made to get there. And maybe it was right for them, it's just wrong for you. But you can look at that path. How did they end up there, and how can I make sure I do not do that? While I'm also looking at the people I do want to model and make the same choices as them. So it's a different framework of looking at things that I personally find very effective. Because sometimes it's actually easier to find anti-mentors than it is to find really effective mentors. So that way you're never at a loss for learning and for moving forward.
That's true. It freaks you out, which is sometimes you need that shock of that, like you said, and I like that name, anti-mentor. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I just made it up. I couldn't think of a good word, so I just made it up. But yeah, maybe I should trademark that or something.
Trademark, whatever it is. That's a good point. Anti-mentors. That's a good motivating force.
Yeah, well, if you listen to some people's stories, so some people grow up and they're like, oh yeah, like my dad was a crazy, successful Nobel Prize person. It was so inspiring, blah, blah, blah. Most people don't have those kinds of life experiences. They don't have those, incredibly amazing, unusual people in their life. Just by definition, the average person has average people in their life, right? So, but if you're trying to be more than average, well, then you can look at the people around you, which you're more likely to have around you, and just try not to be like them in order to do something greater. So yeah, it's just something I've thought about a lot, and I find very effective. And it's also useful because inevitably you're going to get backlash. So if you want to do something that is not average, if that's your aspiration to not live the traditional lifestyle and do something great or be quote unquote successful or whatever vague word you want to attribute to doing something big, well, you're going to have to do something unusual to get there. By definition, if you do something usual, typical, average, you will end up like a usual, typical, average person. So if you want to become a great in whatever you want to become a great in, well, then you have to do things differently. And so I think if you don't have that great mentor that you're modeling, well, then you can just use the people to anti-model. So
that's true. That's absolutely true. That's a motivator on its own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the fear of being average, or what you consider average.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I think everybody has the capacity to be more than average, which statisticians might be angry at me hearing that, but because I think we all have a capacity to do something really, really, really well. Everybody has something that they can do really well. So maybe on average, the average characteristic that you have is very average, but there's something that you can do that you can develop into a highly refined skill set that you can become an expert in, and you can share with the world. You can innovate, you can touch people's lives, you can do something really significant. And so I think that's what we should all focus on is how we can do amazing things like that.
Actually, touching on what you just said there, and that then goes back to our topic when we talked about when you said Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins and how they've just repeated other things, other principles. Once you realize what that thing that you are above average in, and you just be true to who you are, and you just read a little bit more about it and learn more about it, that's how you can, monetize your expertise in your sense.
Yeah. Thanks for the plug then.
That was perfectly. No, but you just made that point. It's true though. Like, it's like, Tim Ferriss, a lot of the stuff is repetition. Same with Tony Robbins, but he's just added his personality in it. He's added a little bit of his own flavor. And they've put it out there. They've obviously had to learn a little bit more, read more about the topic, but they just put it out there. And sometimes that's all you need to do is be true to yourself, realize what you're above average in, and just put it out there.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you look at, okay, so we're using this example to death, but so for example, if you look at Tony Robbins, he's a really educated guy in the sense that he's very self-educated, and he's basically taken his strengths of being able to learn really effectively and then turn around and be super, super ridiculously charismatic and help spread that to the world. And so that's what he's really honed in on, is just mostly those two things. And so for me, one of the things that I'm good at is taking a lot of information and learning and organizing it and synthesizing, distilling it down into something that's really effective and applicable, and making that a business. And so that's what I focus on doing. And the inputs for all of that, right? Like all of the different things that I'm learning are from other sources, but just having that skill set is really, really effective and really valuable when you give that to other people. And so for you, what would you say is your core strength that you try and focus on? Not to put you on the spot or anything. But.
No. So I feel like we're talking about our superhero power.
Yeah. What's your superhero power?
Okay. I know this is again. Okay, growing up, I always liked. Obviously you've all watched X-Men. I always liked Dr. X or Professor X?
I think it's Professor X.
Professor X, yeah. Professor X, the one in the wheelchair. I loved his power. He was my favorite character. And then I realized growing up, and the reason I liked him growing up was because my core skill is analyzing human behavior and why people do what they're actually doing. From a psychological point of view.
And then controlling them with your mind.
Okay. I'm not up to that level yet. I don't have cerebral. I'm still building it.
You're getting there.
So it's kind of like that, human psychology and looking at human behavior and why a person has done what they've done. I think that's my thing. I love analyzing it and discovering people. I know this is going to sound quite intense, but discovering people's deep-rooted beliefs. I kind of have a knack for that. When I'm talking to someone, I'm listening to those words because that's just what I love to do. I love analyzing human behavior. It's fun for me, and sometimes even watching animal behavior, which is really quite interesting as well. But mainly watching human behavior and the words they said and why they said that and what that really means and how that links to their life goals and why they are where they are in this moment of their life.
Yeah, what motivates people.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really important perspective and skill set to have, especially if you want to be a leader in any fashion. Because you have to understand what motivates people, how to motivate people, and how to influence people. So,
true.
Sounds like you want to become a world-class leader here in the near future. Yeah?
I just want to help people. It's fun helping people in this industry, you could say. I mean, I don't even consider it industry. It's just fun to help people that you could see as struggling, but you could also see their potential on the back end.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my fun. Like I could see the potential in a person, and I just want to show that to them. If they want me to show it to them, that's up to you to decide.
So when you work with clients, because I think you've worked with people in a variety of topics and industries and backgrounds, what do you think is the most common hang-up, obstacle people have for themselves? I'm sure you've seen some patterns. So what are the common hang-ups you see?
Standard family. And the reason being, it's family usually. And the reason being is something that happened in their childhood, because between the age of 0 and 7, that is when your mind is a sponge. Okay? And you look at actions are stronger than words. actions is what kind of gets honed in your unconscious, and depending on who you are as a person, this is going to get a little bit deeper. It could hone in the actions of what you're doing today. Even if you're 56 years old, you could still be doing an action because of what happened between years 0 and 7. And usually between the age of 0 and 7, the biggest hang-up, the biggest thing was your family, seeing your family, the actions they did. Your dad, your mom, or your guardian, your grandpa, your grandma, your Uncle Frank, Sister Jenny, whatever it is. Different people in your family. That's usually the hang-up. So that's the common pattern. When I speak with clients, the deep-rooted belief and the deep-rooted patterns usually with their family. Something that happened. Yeah.
Interesting.
And just to let you guys know, it could be positive, it could be negative. You could, again, you could have, like Grant said, an anti-model, where your family did something that you completely just despised, and you just went the complete opposite way, and you became above average. Or whatever, they might have been above average, and you don't like that, and you went to, and you became, whatever it is, below average. But it could also be that you're still following your family, like some of the actions you do, some of the thoughts you have, some of the beliefs you have, some of the reactions you have to things. You could still be following your family. And look, that's up to you to decide. That's up to you to decide whether you want to change or not. But just to let you guys know, if you really focus on it, if there's something right now that you feel like you're unsuccessful in, think, why are you unsuccessful, and how did your family in some ways help you to hone that belief system? Okay, ask yourself that question. How did my childhood affect where I am right now? Okay? I know it's getting a bit deep, but that's the reality of most people. And if you read about psychology, 99% of psychologists will say this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if it's not family, just past experiences in general, it's where all of your baggage comes from.
Absolutely.
Which you tend to accumulate over the course of your lifetime.
Guys, I don't mean to sound, I know family's like a really touchy subject for some people, and for myself as well. Like, we've all had experiences, but what I'm trying to say is use that, use it. Now that you know it, use it to your advantage. I don't mean to, again, go deep, but this is the strategy. This is what most people get caught up on, and you could use it to your advantage, or you could use it against you. So that's up to you to decide.
And what's really interesting, kind of along those lines, and this is also on the lines of being super deep. This is super deep as well. But so I've had lots of conversation the facts that are thrown around about the number of women that are like sexually molested or something in some ways is actually really high, and that's actually really true. If you can, if you have a lot of female friends and they're open with you, a lot of them will reveal that. And one experience, a combination of two experiences, two conversations that I've had before, which I found fascinating, was that I was just listening to two different women's experience with that, and this wasn't just molestation. This was like legit rape, and the way they interpreted the experiences was totally different. And of course, I'm not going to say any names or whatever, but one girl was so nonchalant about it, and she was just like, yeah, I guess it's technically kind of rape, and it kind of sucked, and I can see how it sort of changes some of my actions, and I do some weird stuff as a result of it. But she was like, so not happy as she was saying it, but she was so emotionally unaffected by it, in the sense that she's just like, yeah, whatever, like it kind of sucks, but it happened. You just keep going. Cool. And then another woman was just like carrying that around with her, like that really strong weight, and you could just see how it was weighing her down and influencing so many different aspects of her life in such a strong negative way. And I found that so interesting, is that like, how can two people have relatively similar experiences, both extremely negative, and one person, it almost seems like it doesn't hardly affect them at all, and the other person, it's debilitating.
Absolutely. And that all comes back to personality. The studies show that it's age 0 to 7 is when you take these things in, and then 7 to 14 is a different stage. I don't want to get too deep into psychological aspects, but it's also your personality as a person. Are you, that the girl that was fine with it, she has a different sort of personality. She may be affected in a different way. Her actions might be a bit different in terms of how she may approach men or women, however she was, raped in that sense. And then the other woman's personality is different in terms of she took it on as baggage. So it also comes down to the personality of the person. What is their personality? And that really shapes how they reacted to that significant, thing that happened in their past.
So if if we had switched places and you were having that conversation with them, because so whenever I have conversations like that, I'm like, oh, I kind of want to help you because this is like a horrible experience that you went through, but I'm not trained to be like a life coach or anything like that at all. And so I'm just curious what you would have done in that situation to try and help that person, because I had the intent, like the desire to, but I had no framework for helping aside from listening.
Okay, first of all, guys, the number one thing I do is first I want to know if the person's on any medication, if they have a doctor. Because if they do, then I don't get involved. Because that's the thing is, that's getting a bit deep. If there's medication and doctors involved, you want to be there for them and help in that sense and be caring and empathetic. That's great, but you don't want to really give them any too deep of advice. Like, so that I wouldn't go deep with that person to begin with, unless their doctor is present. That's very important. Number one thing, you need to establish that. But being caring and empathetic is great, so be there in that sense. But for me personally, because this is what I do, coaching kind of links with this side, the emotional side, I got to be careful in that sense. That's the number one thing. And the second thing, if they're not on any medication or anything, the number one thing I want to know is, first of all, well, what are they after in their life, first of all? What are they looking for? I want to know what fulfills them, or what they're trying to go after first. Because that's good. Once I understand that tells me what their point of view on life is, and then we'll go on with the most significant emotional things that happen in their life, and obviously it's going to be that rape, and that's for this example. And then we'll go and talk about this incident. I want to know who, like, was it a family member or was it a friend? And then I want to understand how they feel about it and what beliefs they've come up from it, like what beliefs they've had from this incident. Because that person, like you said, the other person's belief was they're completely fine with it. I still feel like they've created some beliefs, and I want to know what those beliefs are. Because there's, remember, for every action there's a reaction. You want to know what the real reaction is. Me, as my job as a coach in this sense, I want to know what the real reaction is.
Yeah, because honestly, what occurred to me in that conversation was that, like, is she just like saying she's okay with it and not really? Is she just buried it, or she seems so genuinely like nonchalant about it? It was crazy. But it's maybe one person was just more honest with themselves about how they felt about it, and she was just more like trying to contain it. But actually, as you're talking about this, I'm kind of thinking about differences in like their experience. So even though it was that same word for what happened, there's actually a lot of differences in the way that it happened, and who the people were in that situation. So I can see how that could end up being very, very different, even though they're both really negative experiences.
Also, I want to mention, first of all, the person's going to want to change or get over this. You can't just go up to someone and be like, you need to change. But by the way, that's the number one thing. You got to establish that, I don't go up to people and tell them you're whatever, dumb, you need to change. The person has to want to change. So the person wants to change. Definitely. Just if they're, especially something deep rooted like a rape, don't go too deep. If you first got to know what their background with it is. Are they seeing a doctor? Are they seeing medicine? Because you have to know how to approach it. It's like approaching like a little cat as opposed to approaching a crocodile. There's two different ways you approach both of those animals. Yeah, so that's...
And we're not saying women are animals.
Yeah. No. It could be a man, Anything could happen,
Yeah. And this is a really deep and frank conversation, and I hope I don't get any like angry emails about touching such a touchy subject. But I just want to say that the intention for talking about this is actually really pure, and just to be very frank and talk about how to approach things like that, and how to deal with really crazy intense experiences like that, and also how to help other people deal with those kinds of experiences. So that's the purpose behind bringing that up.
Yeah, I mean, I have dealt with people that have, because I do have training in what's called MYE, mental and emotional release techniques. Mm-hmm. And so I have dealt with people that, did have deep-rooted emotional baggage, you could say. Mm-hmm. And a lot of crazy stuff does happen. But the first thing I always establish first, are they seeing a doctor or are they on medication? Because if they are, then it's a different approach. Or I have to have the doctor present there. I know this is how serious it is, guys. Because the thing is, with emotions, as humans, we like to think we're logical, which we do have that side, but we're mainly emotional creatures. And whatever happened as a child, your past experiences, or even in this age, big emotional issues that experiences that you had, if you're in a high emotional state, that gets buried inside. And in some ways, everyone reacts differently to it. Yeah. I think that's probably enough on that topic. Because now,
Yeah, it's
now
really
I want to
heavy
get
now.
really deep. Because now I'm like thinking about I can get really deep into this, but it's very heavy stuff.
Yeah, I can tell. Well, that's probably enough really heavy, deep stuff like that. So maybe let's move on to something lighter.
Yeah.
So tell me about the projects you're currently working on and some of the things you hope to achieve and work on over the next year or so.
Sure. So what I'm mainly working on is just growing my coaching, helping more people in high performance coaching. I am also doing more and more seminars. I do them in Chiang Mai, Thailand, but I stream them live throughout the world. So that's what I'm working on, as well as working on a course, which you're going to be helping me with as well.
Yes, correct.
A couple of courses, and also I do write a lot. I am a writer. I write a lot just whenever I feel like it, and so a book is in the works. It's probably going to be more of a novel with a like self-development twist to it.
Nice.
So that's what I'm working on. And the last thing is I am getting into the area of, I've been given the opportunity to get into the area of corporate training. So I'm going to get into that and training companies on, motivation, productivity, customer service.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it sounds like you've got several tiers of products, a very diversified approach, which before we started recording this, we were having a conversation about a really good book that I had started just yesterday, actually. It's called, I believe it's called .com Secrets. I really kind of like start memorizing the names of the books I'm recommending, but it's a really, really effective book that talks about having different tiers of products. How do you offer people different types of things? Because maybe somebody who wants to read your book doesn't have the capacity or can't afford to hire you as a one-on-one coach, and just having the different levels of availability and how do you connect all that. It's a really fascinating read, so I recommend you guys check that out. If you have any kind of, actually just pretty much any kind of business, or if you're looking to start a business, I think it's essential to have multiple offerings and have your market, have your niche, but also target different levels of people within that niche and try and offer as much as you can to those people based on where they're at. Because the reality is sometimes somebody might want to work one-on-one with you, but inevitably the cost of that's higher. And so maybe they can only buy a book or take a low-end course that you provide. And so having those tiers is really, really effective. So.
Yeah. As well as it's just multiple streams of, helping people solve their problems on multiple levels,
Yeah, multiple modalities.
Yeah, exactly. Someone, like you said, may not be able to afford the coaching, but you still want to help that person, so maybe a course will be good for them. Or some people, maybe they like face-to-face experiences in terms of being in front of, being with a group of people, and that's where speaking comes in. But again, it's just all goes back to what you enjoy doing. Some people may not like to present to people. I enjoy that. Some people maybe they're more like reading a book, or some people like writing a book. They like writing. But personally, I enjoy all those facets. I think it's exciting because I want to help the most amount of people in any way for any kind of learner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of value in that, having different modalities, and maybe even if your book is the exact same thing as your course, is the exact same thing as your coaching, which I know for you it's not, but say hypothetically it is, like there's still a lot of value in that, even if you're duplicating the same essentially the same information, the same exercises in different forms. Because so what I find myself doing is, for example, if I want to learn something, a lot of times I'll read an entire book about pretty much one concept, and it just gives different stories and different examples of that one principal idea. And I'll read the whole book, even though like after reading the back cover, you can get an idea of what the principle is they're teaching, what they're honing in on. But just the very act of really diving in deep, getting that repetition, hearing the stories, and there's a lot of value in that, because otherwise I could have just read a blog post summary of that book, learned basically the same principle, but without any kind of repetition, without any kind of anchoring of the information, and I wouldn't really remember it or apply it. And so I think a lot of people inevitably find value in reading a book and then taking a course on a similar topic, and then maybe even still working with you one-on-one on the same topic. But maybe as a content creator, maybe sometimes it's easy to feel guilty about like, oh, well, it's kind of the same thing. Why should I just sort of create the same thing in different angles? But there's a lot of value in that, and I think that's something that's beneficial to offer. And I even do that within courses to offer like a written version, so like a PDF version of a lecture, or like an audio download, or just having those different formats of the same kind of content, because it allows you to give that repetition, allows you to really drive home points, and allows people to pick which method they want to learn through, whether that's audio, video, reading, etc.
Exactly, and I would look at it just kind of like, at one point Apple had the iPod, then they released the iPod Touch, and then they had the iPhone. Obviously the iPhone can do a lot more, but it's all kind of like 3 different products that basically do similar things. Obviously one gives a little bit more value than the other, and you pay different prices for it. So I think it's like that, and you touched on a good point there, is you can basically release the same product, but in, like you said, different modalities to cater to the different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Different modalities, different price points, different angles, and it's all part of a successful business.
Absolutely. Why not? And why not do it? Why not? And this all goes back to the, that I like this whole anti-model. It goes back to why not do it? Why not try different avenues of helping different people and making money doing it? Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the final things I want to ask you about, which just popped into my head as you were saying that, is how do you deal with the haters? Because I think that's an inevitable thing whenever you're doing anything interesting, whether it's direct haters or people who just aren't really supportive, don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
Or just so you might have a set of core fans, diehard fans that follow you, or a series of clients that you've really changed their lives, but then you might have a surrounding crowd of noise of people who are just like, oh, that's woo woo, that's weird stuff that you're doing. What is this life coaching BS? That's crap. Like, it doesn't do anything. I'm sure you get a lot of that, so I'm curious how you deal with that.
Well, first of all, I'm flattered. I'm flattered that you take the time out to analyze my life and not use it to focus on yourself. Okay, don't read my stuff, don't listen to myself, but you're literally taking time out of your day to analyze me. So I'm flattered. That's all I have to say about it.
Very simple response, but very, very powerful. I think it's true. And it's actually sometimes really surprising how willing people are to spend the time to troll you.
Exactly. It's actually the funniest thing I find is when you go on YouTube and you see all the bad comments. Like, I mean, I haven't had any, but I'm saying like on other people. It's actually really funny. I actually find it entertaining because people literally are taking time out of their day to analyze someone else and then to write something bad. Like, I just find it really funny. So I think it's, if anything, it's flattering that someone would take time out of their day, like their energy, to focus on you.
And oftentimes I think if you get such a strong negative response, oftentimes that's actually indicates you're doing something right, because it means you're polarizing people. And so for every hater, you probably have somebody who absolutely loves what you're doing. And if you look at the most successful YouTube channels or what have you, with bazillions of views or subscribers, those oftentimes are the ones with the most haters, right? Like if your YouTube channel is dead, you might have a couple, like 3 comments like, oh, good job. But if you have a video with 10 million views, you're going to have like the top 30 comments be like long rants about how terrible a person you are, no matter what you're doing.
And that's the thing, like, look at Steve Jobs. I mean, I'm pretty sure people still hate him, and he's not even alive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that, you have Apple versus Samsung. I mean, there is battles. People despise Apple, and there's people that despise Samsung. So it's inevitable. And again, I think I just find it flattering.
Yeah,
if anything.
I think it's a healthy perspective to have. Again, if you are polarizing people, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And it comes with the territory.
It's just focus on, I just focus on what I do. I'm there to reach my goals. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and so if any of you guys are worried about that as well, an entrepreneur friend of mine gave a really good recommendation to offset that, which is to go ahead and buy the domain of yournamespam.com.
Oh, okay, true, okay.
Because inevitably, if you do anything interesting, if you type in your own name, eventually there'll like be one of the auto populations of Google of like Grant Weherley spam.
Yeah.
Like it's because people search that about your products and what you do. And I thought that was really, really funny. I haven't done it yet, but
actually, I want to bring up another topic on porn. And Taylor Swift did that.
Wait, what?
She brought up all the sites like TaylorSwiftPorn.com.
Oh, really?
It was like documented. She bought all the stuff like about that the way they'd add her name with porn, just so that no one could talk anything about her to do with porn, because they aim at these Hollywood stars and singers, from a porn point of view. So I thought that was pretty interesting of her. Like you said, she bought up all those domain names.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, there's a really good tool which helps you manage the websites that show up in Google related to your name or your brand. I think it's called brandyourself.com. Okay. And I had a free account with them a long time ago, but it looked really interesting. I didn't use it too much, but it's cool that there are services out there, whether it's that one or other ones. And I have no affiliation, of course, but that help you actually manage your online reputation, right? Like that's a fascinating thing. But I think it's really important if you're trying to do something really interesting.
It is. No, thanks for that. Brandyourself.com. Actually, I'll use that.
Whichever
one. Whichever website there is out there.
Yeah. So,
cool.
Yeah, man, I really love this conversation. We definitely covered the gambit of like business, really deep, heavy topics, but also some interesting habits. And we talked about a lot of really interesting things. So I really appreciate you taking the time and joining me today.
That's fine. No, thank you for having me, Grant. I just want to give just kind of a final message, and take this however you want to take it. Like, guys, it's almost like I don't want to give you a motivational speech. Just take it the way you want it. But your time, time is the most important factor. The question is, what are you doing with your time? And if you are frustrated in some ways, if you're angry right now, even if you're working on your passion, you're frustrated, just remember, time is passing by. So just go and do something else that's going to get you closer to your goal. Okay, time. I think that's really the most important thing to remember, time. So just use your time wisely. And I say that to myself as well, use your time wisely.
Now, can you repeat that same message as if you were giving one of those epic speeches in a movie? Okay. Ready, go.
Guys, it's the final quarter. Wait, I have to prepare mentally for that.
Yeah,
I have to put myself out. It's intense,
Actually, I used to do that. Like, whenever somebody would say something that sounded like it was out of a movie, I'm like, okay, now repeat that as if you were legit in a movie, and I'm going to record it. It's hilarious.
We're sweating. We're bleeding.
Yeah.
But time is important. We've got 2 quarters left. Yeah.
Nice. We'll practice that. I'll be on the next interview.
If you come to my seminar or watch it live, you'll see me doing something similar. Right? It's a lot of energy, a lot of movement, a lot of dancing, a lot of laughing.
Dancing? You dance?
Well, you'll see.
Okay,
If you come or watch it live, you'll see that we do some crazy stuff. Because I like to get the crowd going, man. It's boring to just stand up there and talk.
Dude, when I went to that wedding of the friend of yours and you were the MC, that was really interesting. That was so interesting.
Oh, God. I was hoping you would have bring that up.
No, it was fascinating because like you took it really seriously. And what was it? I think the way you started out was like, "Are you ready to rumble?" I was like, "What? This is a wedding."
I was trying to get them to laugh. The thing is we had a mixture. It was a Thai wedding. It was a Chilean guy married to a Thai woman, and so there was a lot of Thai. So I don't think they understood.
Yeah,
there was, I think only like 7 English speakers in general.
Yeah, and also like the Thai culture is very like kind of quiet and relaxed. And then he's like, "Are you ready to rumble?
Let's get ready to rumble!" And it was just I was trying to get them going because everyone was kind of like low energy.
Yeah,
I was trying to get them going and just having fun. But you guys left, so.
Yeah. No, we were there. We stuck around. Like that convinced us to stick around for sure. That was really interesting, and that took balls. That took some serious balls.
But you guys missed the toast I did for him. Oh my god!
Really?
I even shocked him. Do you want me just?
Yeah, go for it. That's interesting.
So basically, I'm friends with the group, right? And so he asked me to do a toast, and so I took the mic. Well, I was emceeing anyway, and I just said something like, "Guys, I want to tell you a story, but I have a secret to tell you about the groom." And everyone was just like, "What?" And even the groom was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Because me and him were kind of close, and it's like, and his secret is, and I was just kind of keeping them. I was like, "Do you guys want to know the secret?" And everyone was like, "Yeah, tell us." And he was really worried. He was like looking at me like, "What the hell?" And even his bride was worried, and her family. And I said, "He has an addiction." And everyone was like, "What?" Oh, and even he's like, what are you doing?" He's looking at me really angry, and his wife is kind of confused, and their family. And then I was just like, "He's addicted to that woman right there." And it was his wife, and it was like, so I made it a little bit crazy, but it was really fun. But if you were there in the moment, it was just, everyone was kind of just heated. Like, I think even the people that didn't understand English were just like, "What's going on now?"
Yeah, I can imagine that being super awkward and tense. And the fact that you can do that effectively speaks to your speaking ability.
You gotta make things fun, man. You gotta shock people sometimes. There's so much stuff coming out.
Yeah, with some snapping too.
Some snapping as well. And some,
He's got an addiction. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was like he's got an addiction, you know, it was like a real low voice.
To porn. Taylor Swift porn.
Oh, good times.
Nice.
But yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. And
if anyone wants to get in touch with you, throw out some URLs.
So, guys, I run a website and I post on there videos to do with personal growth and higher consciousness. So if you're really into like personal growth, higher consciousness, and not just like talking about it, but actually learning strategies that you can actually apply, and in kind of a wacky way, like not really wacky, I try and make it as fun as possible. Go to my website called successenergy.com. Energy is spelt with an I. Grant's going to put the URL in. And if you want to get these strategies regularly, go ahead and subscribe. Go to the Your Gift tab. There's actually a gift waiting for you. So again, if you're into personal growth, higher consciousness, go ahead to that website. And
what is higher consciousness? Because I think that's one of those terms where I'm like, I'm not really sure what that means. So
that's a good point. So it's really, you know, I'm into personal growth psychology and all that, the real logical stuff, but I'm also into, you know, really being conscious about making decisions and looking at things from outside the box in terms of what has society taught us, what has your family taught you, what has culture taught you, and in some ways, what's the truth? Because sometimes some of the things we've been taught as a society growing up isn't necessarily true. And I'd you know, assume that the kind of people that are listening to this podcast in some ways believe that we've been taught a certain formula, we've been taught certain beliefs. And so that's kind of how I look at it in terms of higher consciousness, looking at things from outside the box and taking the proactive view and saying, well, is this true? You know, is this belief growing up true? So I kind of take that approach as well as personal development.
Or probably even more important is it helpful? Is it a helpful belief? Because I think, you know, you can have multiple beliefs that are true, but some are positive, some are helpful, some are inhibitive. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's really interesting.
Absolutely. And so that's my website, successenergy.com, and go to the Your Gift section to subscribe. I also have you know, the multiple social networking platforms. If you want to get on me on a more like in some way serious level or corporate, whatever you want to call it, I have a LinkedIn profile which is quite extensive and it has all my you know, all my expertise from the past as well as my posts and articles that I write. And I also have the Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, which is all on there, and YouTube.
Yeah, so just search his name, and again, we'll obviously have his name and the way it's spelled. Search those on whichever platform you're interested in. Yeah. And actually, at the very least, it might be interesting for you guys to check out, assuming your LinkedIn profile is like quite comprehensive, to see the journey of going through maybe a somewhat traditional career path, excelling there, and then making a dramatic shift, and how all that looks, how you made that shift and became an expert in a totally different industry, and how that works, because that's one of the main topics I like to talk about, and you can actually see the timelines and the exact series of career changes you've made.
That's exactly, and if you guys also, you know, if you like the style, you can also on my LinkedIn as well as on my website click on the live events, and you can catch the stream online of my events. And I post them on Facebook, so you'll find them everywhere. But you can watch my events live through a live stream through an app called Meerkat. Okay,
awesome. And he starts every single thing he does with, "Are you ready to rumble?"
Oh, you're right. That's exactly it.
Not really, but I think you should. So let's leave a comment below and tell him he should do that, because I want to start seeing that.
I want to bring back WWE, man. I don't know. I haven't watched it in ages, so I want to bring that back.
Okay.
Well, they still use that in boxing, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, it was definitely it broke my state or whatever.
That didn't work. And there you go. That's exactly what I was trying to do.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure everybody here loved it as well.
No, thank you, Grant. I really appreciate you having me in. It was a great conversation.
Cool. Cheers, guys. And as always, leave any comments that you have. And I can also go to the URL and get in touch with Hugh if you're interested in learning more about his stuff.
Thank you.
See ya.
Hey entrepreneurs and experts, I just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you learned at least one new big idea that helps you evolve your skills and gets you closer to monetizing your expertise and creating that successful knowledge business. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and Stitcher, and check out myepodcast.com for all episodes as well as the tips and tricks mentioned in this episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.